I'm going to welcome again Melanie and Abdi, and we have Palthar. I'm sorry if I'm saying your name right, or wrong, rather. Please correct me. And we're just going to go through section 3 of the Parenting University's crash course and just have an open discussion about what's happened within that section and anything else that's going on in the course. So what we've been doing up to this point really is we started off in section 1 looking at our method. You know, we said we all have a method, and over the course of this time, as you take this class, we're going to figure out a way to change our method, and that was with the method change cycle. And then in order to better understand what our method is, we looked at the inventory, where we learned our parenting skills from, which we did last week when we talked about the inventory. Now we're going to find out stuff perhaps that we didn't know. I mean, all that stuff we knew. Now we're trying to figure out some stuff that we don't know, and that's what the assessments are all about. So we want to look at personality style first. And the reason for this is, well, let me do it this way. Let me ask you guys, what do you think the reason is I want to know what the personality style is?
You go, Melanie.
Thanks. Well, I guess the personality style will then lead on to the parenting style at some point, I would imagine. There must be a link somewhere.
Okay, that's good. How about you, Abdi?
I kind of understood is that if you know yourself, then you have a better chance of understanding your child.
Yeah.
Because themselves will have their own personality. So know yourself first before you try to know your child.
Very good. I mean, you both are onto something. Both answers are right. I did it for a number of reasons. Number one, I wanted to get us into a reflective type of mode. We got to constantly reflect on ourselves and what we're doing. But it also fits into, there's 6 points on my Star Family coaching logo, and it's done by design because there's 6 actual phases of parenthood. And the first phase really is stuff that Kane really covers, about developing your personality and your character, becoming the best you can possibly be. But phase 2 is creating that relationship between you and your spouse or whoever the co-parent's going to be, and any other person that you're going to have a relationship with that'll ultimately become a family or what have you. Or it could be just friends. But we do have to work on relationships. That's all about communications and things of that nature. And personality styles impact relationships. And if you understand different personality styles, you can relate to people better. So that's really why I brought it in. And then later on, it will, as Melanie indicated, will make sense because there is some correlation between personality styles and parenting styles. We tend to find that people who are more like director personalities tend to be authoritarian in their personality, in their parenting style. So there is a correlation. It's not always the case. And another thing about personality styles is that you may not be that personality style all the time, and you could take that test 100 times and you could probably come up with 100 different answers. It's all about the frame of mind you're in that day and all that. So I wouldn't take anything that you gained from the either one of these tests and say, put a stamp on your head and say, this is the way I am, because that's just not the way you are. That's just sort of where you're at right now. And those are your tendencies. You're leaning in that direction, so to speak. We can all change and we can all adapt. And so that's really what the lessons are all about. So let's look at some of these personality styles. What did you, oh, by the way, in my workbook, did you guys look at the workbook?
Yep.
What you might not know is I took that 16, let's see, what's the name of that site?
Myers-Briggs.
The Myers-Briggs one, but it's a specific one.
Yeah.
It's kind of fun. It's actually a fun, www.16personalities.com. And I came out as the protagonist. And I put that was my results that I had that day. So I just You know, that's sort of a secret that you guys know that nobody else knows.
Wow.
And I just put that up as an example of, you know, what the test looks like. What did you guys come out as?
I'm an INFJ, which was the advocate.
Pathologist type of person? What was it? Welcome, Melinda. Okay. How about you, Abby? Did you?
I did took, but it came up something really weird, and I forgotten. I shot it down somewhere. I was like, "What was that?" And yeah,
Were you able to? Were you guys able to kind of frame it into the 4 that I created for this course? Either director, or the peacekeeper, or the showtime person, or the tax man. Which one do you think you fit into?
Peacekeeper.
Yeah, I don't doubt it, Melanie. You seem like the peacekeeper.
I got 56% peacekeeper.
Okay.
Yeah.
and then I was the director,
Okay.
but that changed. But that changed every day when my daughter walks into the front door, and she say, "Daddy," I kind of become the peacekeeper.
Right.
Makes sense.
So I'll operate the director all day long, and then she comes in and she says, "Daddy," and I'm like, "Yes, dear," and everything changes.
Yeah, well, that's kind of what happens with these personality styles. We may have a personality, a persona or style at work, and then we have a different one sort of with our family or with our friends. And of course, you throw kids in the mix and, you know, all bets are off, right? So,
Right.
okay, so that's good. What we can look at, let's look at the directors, for example. I mean, you might not be a director, but there's a good chance that at some point in time, you're going to run into a director. A teacher might be a director. It might be an influencer for your child. It could be an uncle, could be a grandparent. So we want to look at the personalities of the influencers that we talked about in the last section. Who are these influencers that are going to be impacting our children's lives? And so, you know, directors tend to be cut to the chase type of people. They don't want to hear a lot of fluff. You know, just give me these options, A or B or C, and then let me make the decision. They want to have the control, typically, right? They're pretty tough-minded. They can you know, be highly opinionated, and oftentimes, if you sort of try to debate them, you know, it's not going to work out so well. You have to know how to, you know, let them make the choices by presenting the options that you want them to choose, if you know what I mean. So that's kind of how you can direct the director by only providing the options that are going to work out, right? So these are just things that your child may end up being a director, okay? And you're going to want to guide them in a certain way in terms of their behavior. So rather than trying to direct them, you know, they're going to resist that. Provide options for them that are good options, and then let them make the choice, and then they feel empowered, and it doesn't go against their personality. Okay, so that's the director. Now we have the showtime. My wife's a showtime. She's, you know, lots of drama, you know, and she went to NYU and got a degree in fine arts, and she wanted to be a theater major, and you know, so life is like being in a play with her, because she's full of excitement, and I love that about her. But at times, showtime people need to be reeled in a little bit. You know, like they can lose track of time. They can be decisive one moment and then indecisive the next. Get really flustered easy. Get too caught up talking about the subjective experience, or just kind of going on and on and on. And if you're a time management person, it can drive you a little bit nutty. So, you know, these are some of the personality types that your child might be a showtime person, you know, like want to show off and everything. And we just have to, like, okay, just be make a friendly reminder of them that, hey, okay, you want to do these other things that are exciting too, right? Oh yeah, yeah, and then kind of reel them in so they don't get lost off and lose track of time. Peacekeeper. This is what you are, right, Melanie? I'm a peacekeeper. Peacekeepers are the ones that they'll be the first ones to come up and give you a hug if you're crying. I mean, they're just like, they're usually very compassionate, and conforming and almost to a fault. Sometimes rather than arguing, they would just rather give in. Very respectful, but the problem is that they do have difficulty making firm decisions in general. Like they don't want to be put on the spot. Make a decision. No, let me talk to somebody about it first. You know, it's like they need permission to have this decision. And so it can be, if you need a decision right away, if you're dealing with a peacekeeper, find out who that other person is. Like who's the real person, the decider here. You're like, so if you're dealing with the child might, like it's the big brother, the big sister that's going to make the decision. So get the big brother or the big sister in the room with them so you can get, you know, the situation resolved right away. So that's the peacekeeper. Now, the tax man is a very analytical person. Oftentimes won't show emotion, just looking at numbers. I've coached a lot of these kind of kids, and they are, it's funny seeing them because they really stand out from all the other kids. It's, you know, it's right and wrong. This is wrong. And they're like, you know, and there's a moral aspect to their thinking. And they're very task oriented. It goes this way, and then it goes that way, and then it goes this way. And so if you have a child like that, you know, that's fine. But let's also introduce feelings to the words so we can bring them kind of into the real world. Because if you get too tax man, you start to become antisocial. These people tend to become the people that don't have great social skills. And, you know, if we want to connect in life, we're going to have some social skills. So these are just, we touched on the 4 different personality types. Have you guys got a read on your children in terms of what do you think their personality types are like?
I would say my daughter is probably peacekeeper with a bit of showtime. She can be a bit of a drama queen sometimes, but she's very, very affectionate. She doesn't like conflict like me, so I think more or less peacekeeper. My son, I think maybe taxman. He's very, very logical in his approach. He seems very mature for his age, the way, you know, he looks at things from a different perspective. But he's got very, very firm morals. Nobody can shake him. If he's decided on something, that's it. You know, he's not going to listen to anybody, kind of thing. So yeah, I would say he's probably in the taxman category. And he also, actually saying that, he seems to find it difficult to understand me and my daughter sometimes. You know, we'll be sitting having this long conversation about sort of emotional stuff, and he's like, what are you talking about? You know, he doesn't seem to connect emotionally with some things.
All right, let me, Rita, if you can hear me, could you please mute your microphone? We're getting a lot of feedback. We invite you to speak up and talk, but if you're not talking, please mute your microphone. Let me see if I can figure out a way to.
Sorry.
How about you, Abby?
My daughter is more like a showtime person. Consistently, she's into showtime consistently, like day and night. Yeah.
All right. Okay, so how do these personality types impact your parenting?
For me, it can be frustrating at times when you agree to do certain things, and then the child just goes somewhere else, and now she's into the next thing, and then now she's just into the next thing, and you're like, and so
Okay, I mean,
So you want her to concentrate, but she's all over the place some days.
okay. Okay, let's see if we can. Here, okay. Problem solved. All right. If I can keep it off. Let's see if I can. Okay. Pardon the interruption, folks. I'm just trying to. Okay, I think I got it from my end. There's a way to do it from this end. I hadn't had to do that before, so bear with me. Okay, so how about you, Melanie? Has it become an issue, or do you find it frustrating at times because of the different personality styles?
Yeah, I think I mentioned before, I very much feel I have to have a very different approach with the two children. My daughter's a lot more demanding of my time, and she needs explanations all the time, you know, whatever I ask her to do or not do. She needs to know, you know, the reasons behind it, and if she's not feeling great or anything, you know, she needs to sit down and discuss and then pour out her feelings and everything. Whereas if I try that approach with my son, he just gets really frustrated, and it's like, yeah, okay, I know, you know, it's like, what are you going, you know, just to finish the conversation, I've got things to do, you know. He doesn't want to get into all that kind of emotional stuff. So yeah, I find my son easier, but in some ways maybe I don't spend the time I should with him, because I'm kind of pulled towards my daughter, because as I say, she can be as well a bit of a drama queen, so she tries to pull my attention in her direction a lot more. So I think, yeah, my focus is more on her a lot of the time, whereas, you know, it should be more evenly split between the pair of them, I guess. Okay, she's a bit younger as well, so.
Yeah, as long as he doesn't feel like he's being neglected or anything, you know, children don't really have a good concept of time. You know, that I find that, you know, in my sports coaching, up until around age 11, 12, they, you know, 2 minutes is 10 minutes to them. I mean, they don't, no concept of time whatsoever. I'll have a kid on the bench and he's like, put me in, coach, put me in, coach. I say, okay, look at the clock. When the clock says 5 minutes left to go in the game, that's when you get up. And they're still tapping me on the shoulder. Is it 5? I said, there's the clock, just have a look. It's just like, you know, and if you've ever been on a long trip with your kids, and you tell them, we're going to be there in a half hour, and they're going to, every 2 minutes, is it a half hour yet? Is it a half hour yet? So as long as they feel as if they're getting enough time, the time that they need from you, you know, from our perspective, we're looking at things, you know, more divided and, you know, oh, I'm not spending enough time. As long as they feel like they're getting enough time, that's what's important. Okay, and they'll start behaving and acting out to let you know when they feel like they're not getting the right amount of time. So it's just something to think about. All right, let's move over to parenting styles. And we talked about 5 of them in this course. There's 4 distinct styles, and there's kind of a new one that kind of hovers over. And no pun intended, but the new term helicopter is a new term, and it came, I think it's only about 15, 20 years old. And this term really can apply to any of the other 4 parenting styles. Well, I maybe not so much with uninvolved. I mean, if you're uninvolved, you're just detached and you're not really paying attention to what's going on, so you're not really hovering over the kids. But if you are a passive parent, I've seen helicopter passive parents, which are, you know, the permissive passive parent is always saying yes. They don't know how to say no. So they're just kind of hovering and hanging and giving their child attention all the time, over too much attention, and handing them everything and never saying no to them. but they're still hovering over them like a helicopter would. And then you have the authoritarian. There's a lot of authoritarians who are also helicopter parents, constantly just on top, wagging the finger, always pointing out the errors. Very seldom do they, present or acknowledge praise. These are the authoritarians. And we have, then we have the authoritative, which the terms are kind of very similar and they sound so I like to use the term proactive guiding parent. So there's a verbiage distinction between being authoritarian versus being an authoritative. So the proactive guiding parent is one who's going to be engaged and active in the child's life, but also step back and let the child live their life and present opportunities for them in a guiding kind of way. You're not directing them and telling them, but you're just kind of leading them into the room, so to speak, and pointing out where everything's at, and then, being very observant at that point. And then stepping in when you need to step in and letting things happen when you need to let things happen, which is more times than you can imagine. We need to let our children fall down. And we need to let them have some bad experiences because that's how they're going to learn. And that's one of the toughest things to do as a parent. I remember as a child, my mother pulled up a chair across the street and sat and watched me get into a fist fight with this other kid. Kid picked on me and was fist fighting. I'm like, oh, my mom's going to come protect me. No, she got the chair and just sat there and watched. And I was like, I'm thinking, what is she doing? I mean, this is the neighborhood bully. I'm going to get my tail kicked here. And, and I held my own. My face was a lot bloodier than his, but, he was the one that ended up running off after I tore his shirt, and he knew he was going to get his tail whooped by his father after that. So he ran home crying, and I was sitting there. He beat me pretty bad, but I was still standing there. And I went over and I asked my mother, why didn't you help me? He says, you didn't need any help. I wasn't going to let him kill you, but you needed to know that you could fight that guy. If I would have stepped in, you would have never known that you could have stood up for yourself. And now you can stand up for yourself. And so that was one of the greatest lessons I ever received in my life. I lost the fight, but I sort of gained the game of life, if you will, because I was never afraid of a bully again. Was not afraid of him, was not afraid of any other bully after that. So if it wasn't for my mother letting me fall and letting me get my butt whipped, who knows how I would have turned out. But these are things that are tough to do. I mean, if I was in my mother's shoes, I don't know that I could do that so well. It would be very hard for me to watch my son or my child, my daughter, especially my daughter being, she's my youngest one, seeing her getting in a fight and losing the fight and not want to step in. But, hopefully I would be able to have the same kind of wisdom. So how did you guys make out with your parenting style test?
I was more like the authoritative one.
Okay. Authoritative or authoritarian?
Authoritative.
Okay. What were your percentages, if you don't mind me asking?
You know what? I don't have in front, but that was probably the highest, I think. Or
Okay.
Such. Yeah.
What was like the lowest one? Do you remember?
Or the beekeeper.
Okay. No, I mean, well, it would be passive or permissive. Let me see what term I'm using here. Let's see, helicopter, uninvolved, permissive. Yeah, not passive. Permissive and
permissive. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, that was the one. How about you, Melanie?
I was authoritative as well,
Okay.
but very closely followed by passive, permissive. And I think I've already identified that because I've realized lately, the last sort of 6 months or so, I am more permissive with them. I feel I've lost a bit of control that probably I had before. What with everything that's been going on, at some points I've just not had the energy to really keep on top of them how I would have done before. So I think that's probably the reason. But yeah, still it's slightly above was the authoritative. So. And
Okay.
the lowest for me, I think, what was the lowest? Authoritarian was the lowest. So.
Okay. All right. Well, there may be a situation where you become somewhat authoritarian. There's going to be a situation where we may be any of these styles. And it may change over time. For example, we were talking about last week, our influencers, and Abdi, you were sharing with us that in the first 10 years of your life, you were raised by your parents, and then you went off to boarding school. So it could be that at some point in time when your daughter hits, the 10-year age or whatever, at the subconscious level, you kind of want to shift into a different mindset. And that's all based on the imprinting and the modeling and the experience you had in your own life. So these are things this is a reason why we need to examine where we've been at, because there's these little creatures kind of hovering around in our subconscious that if we're not mindful of, will just kind of pop up to the surface, and we may wake up one day going, what's going on? How come my style has changed? And, this self-reflection and viewing our own history and looking at who influenced us, this is all going to help us, moving forward in our job of parenting. So just something to be mindful of, that today you guys scored this way. If we don't stay on top of it, the style may change. And by the way, you guys got the most appropriate. This is the ideal type of parenting style, the authoritative parenting style. It's the most ideal. There's a lot of research that's been done on this. Children that are raised by authoritative parents tend to do better in every measurable way. Children that are raised by any of these other styles, all sorts of problems tend to occur. The permissive parent, generally the child grows up without any boundaries, no respect for people. They become a recluse and have trouble with relationships later in life. And the over-authoritarian parent, the child tends to grow up with low self-esteem and often can turn into a bully or become an authoritarian themselves. And, that's certainly not a cycle that we want to repeat. Obviously, uninvolved is not good either. I mean, the child feels neglected, doesn't ever feel loved, and will often do a lot of things to find love. Uninvolved parents usually can end up with children who get involved and their teenagers get pregnant. They start doing promiscuous things to seek that attention. So congratulations, you guys. I mean, you guys got the highest score or the best style. It's good to stay on top of it and be mindful of it so that you can keep doing that. But it's okay if once in a while you discover that, hey, I'm sounding a little bit like an authoritarian here, or I'm being a little too permissive here. Just be mindful of it, because you don't want to just get lost off in that track. And it's good that you pointed that out, Melanie, that sometimes you're feeling like you're starting to become a little too permissive. As long as you're aware of it, you can do something about it. And that's what's great about these types of tests. And so at this point, where we're at is that we have an understanding of what our method is. We know our history, how we got to where we're at with our parenting style, and now we learned a little bit more about our styles and our personality styles and our parenting styles. So what do you guys think up to this point? How you feeling with the course and the progress? And
I mean, for me, if nothing else, the course makes me think and search for answers. Because I one time think I'm this way, and I'm like, wait a minute, I'm not really sure if that's what I am. So sometimes really, I could be sitting at my desk for about an hour with a lot of notepads, scratching and doing this thing. And really, it makes me think. It's a lot of moments, where you really second guess yourself and say, yeah, gotta be honest. Be honest with yourself. Be honest with yourself. So it really makes me think. Let me say that because I have never thought anybody would be offering a parenting coaching classes my entire life. I just thought it's not something that you learn. It's something that you just figure out as you go along. And yeah, so it's been really helpful, and it's really a unique out of the box. And I think it's probably one of the best investment that I made in my life.
Oh, super. Thank you. Thank you for the kind words. The point of all this really is, as you said, just more self-reflection, to seek out. I don't pretend to have all the answers. I don't have all the parenting answers. I don't know that anybody does. The reason I created the program is because, just like you said, nobody's doing it. Why don't we have some information? At least a starting point. That's really what I'm trying to do, is create some kind of a starting point. And then, as this thing grows and gets bigger, we can share our experiences, and maybe it turns into some kind of perfect framework, if such a thing exists. But there is a lot of great information out there, and I shared some of it here in this course, and I've got some others that I'm going to share in other courses. And as we all look for answers, I'm looking for answers too. And if there's something that fits your need, I'm going to be there to try to share it if I can. So at this point, how about you, Melanie, in terms of the course and where you're at?
Yeah, no, I agree. It's actually really helpful because it helps you look at things from a different perspective. It's in a more structured way, a more focused way. So rather than just thinking, oh my God, I'm a terrible mum or whatever, you analyze more, what am I doing that I could change? How could I be a better parent? So it's a lot easier to focus on individual elements rather than just thinking, oh, I'm not cut out for this, or things aren't going well. Just helps you focus in on exactly what you can do. I'm wondering as well, talking about what I was saying before, I feel that I'm slipping sometimes into the more passive, permissive role. Over here in Cyprus, the children they're off school for 3 months. So I think that's playing a role as well, because obviously, that they've got another week or so of the scholars, but they've been off school for 2.5 months now. So we've kind of lost all that routine and everything that we've normally got. So I think that's played a role in it as well. Yeah.
I was doing a parenting meeting last week all about back to school and the stresses. And yeah, you go from, the kids are going from this Disney World like experience in some ways. You're on holiday and you don't have to go to school, and then now they got to go back into the structured environment, and they're going to resist that. But from the parents' perspective, it's almost like we're going on Disney now because we get the structure back and we need it. And so the transition's tough. It's tough on them. It's tough on us. And there's a few weeks there where beforehand and afterhand where it can get a little crazy and wild. But it's good that you recognize that. And my advice is, don't wait till the last second, to get them in the sleep cycles and all this kind of stuff. Try to get ahead on that about 2 or 3 weeks in advance.
Yeah, we started yesterday actually. I wrote there on a piece of paper what time. I said, we've got to get you back into school hours. So you've got to half an hour earlier every couple of days, get to bed a little bit earlier.
Oh, good. That's good.
Try and get them back into the routine. They weren't very pleased, but but we'll get there.
Oh, that's great. That's great. So Abby hit on something earlier. He used the word, you got to be truthful and honest. And when you take these tests, for those of you who haven't gotten to this point yet in the course, it's section 3, we do assessments, self-assessments of personality. and parenting style, you have to be as honest as you possibly can. You can't answer it as this is the person I'd like to be. You have to answer it as this is the person I am. And sometimes that's hard. I mean, it's really hard to be a fair judge of yourself. Sometimes we want to imagine that we're this perfect parent, or this is the personality style we are, or this is the parenting style we operate by, but in reality, that's not what's happening. So this course is only going to help you as much as you are honest with yourself. And that's true with Kane's courses. I mean, if you can't be honest with yourself, then you're going to have a hard time getting, becoming the best version of you possible. So what we're going to be doing, we got a little bit of extra time here. Let's open it up to just questions, Q&A, just general questions about anything to do with parenting. And if you want to stick to this topic, that's fine. If you want to move to a different topic, that's great too. Rita, you have any questions for us? You've stepped in, and I'm glad to see you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for, are you hearing me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, okay. So I have a little baby. She's two months only. So, and she's my first daughter. So it's a whole new life for me. And I heard of this course, and I think that it's not soon enough to learn about parenting. I don't have much to share with you because my daughter don't ask anything. She just eats and sleeps. But it's nice to hear your experiences and learn about the different styles of parenting, so I can get insight and try to be the best mother I can be. That's why I joined you.
Bravo! I love it. I'm actually a little bit jealous of you. I mean, I wish I was you. I wish somebody would have been doing this when my first child was 2 months old, because I would have been a lot better at parenting. So, that's great. One of my concerns when I created this course was the next generation, the younger generation, those new parents that start off, if they had the same mindset that I had, which was, I know how to do this. How hard can it be, And whatever advice I need, I just ask my mom and dad, they can tell me how to do this, right? Mm-hmm. And, I started doing it, and I quickly realized, I'm not doing a very good job at this, and I need some help, but my pride wouldn't let me ask, You don't want to be the one person that raises their hands in your group of friends and says, I don't know what I'm doing. I need some help, because everybody's pretending like they know what they're doing.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
And nobody really knows what they're doing. I mean, that's just the truth. So yeah, congratulations. You're joining at the perfect time. Like you said, there's no time too soon to start learning these things and putting these things into practice. Mm-hmm. Your child is going to have the benefit of you
sleeping over there.
And you got her to sleep too. Wow, good job. So that's wonderful. I'm excited for you, and this is good. You're doing a wonderful job. I ask you basically to sponge up as much as you can. Don't just take my course. Take as many courses as you can, because I've said before, I don't pretend to know everything. I've just done the best I can by gathering as much information, not just my own experience, but I've read a lot of books, and my course really is based on the experts that are out there and just putting it all together in one sort of place that everybody can go to. And then I want to do things like this, which is have discussion groups. And eventually what I'd like to do is get into role playing. So we get into scenarios. So when we're confronted with issues with our children, we'll know what to do in advance. So that's where my thinking is. I think we need more of this type of thing when it comes to parenting. And unfortunately, they don't teach it in school. And there's really, you have to really want to go and find it to get it. It's not like it's in Starbucks. It's not like on every corner. It's something you have to look for, and if you want it, you can find it. But usually, it's this method or that method, and I'm trying to just present all of it to you guys. You decide which way you want to do it. So, thank you for joining in. And anybody else have any other questions?
Yeah, Donnie, as I've said before, I think my main problem at the moment is enforcing discipline. And I can identify areas where I've kind of slipped a little bit, and I've sort of given them a bit of more of a free rein, and I'm trying now to pull it back in. But I'm finding that difficult, partly because I've always tended to reward them rather than punish them for, and they're kind of that age now. It's harder to reward them. When they're younger, it's very easy to, just a packet of sweets, or, and you can get them to do anything. But at the age they're at now, and also financially, I can't at the moment, go and buy them new phones and this kind of thing. So I'm struggling how to actually try and to get things back on track. And also because I always feel I have to explain everything, and rather than just saying, this is what you have to do, don't argue. They will start to but, and I'm trying to show them the reasons why, and my son has got an answer for everything. I'll tell him off for playing on his tablet, and he'll be like, oh, but mum, there's a boy in my group, and he's from Spain, and he's teaching me Spanish, and I'm not just playing the game, I'm learning Spanish. It's educational, and it's like I find it really difficult to argue with that, and so he's so I think that's the real area I'm sort of struggling with at the moment. Whether it should be a gradual thing, or whether I should just say, right, from today, you're only allowed so many hours TV or so many hours on the tablet, to try and cut it down.
I think a lot of these questions that you're faced with, these challenges, as you move forward through the course, you're going to have answers to those questions, because I talk about conflict resolution. I talk about the family constitution, which is a great concept in which basically you set up the rules in advance with them. I you imagine you have a government system. They get some input on what it is, the rewards are going to be and what the punishments are going to be. So anytime anything is violated in terms of, they come home late, if that's one of the rules that they're not supposed to break, if they don't do their homework, they know in advance, without you having to get upset or anything, what the consequence is going to be. Okay, so it's no crying and getting upset, because the emotions are completely removed from the situation. This is what it is. You agreed to it, and let's do it now. And they may still kick up a storm a little bit, but they'll get it done. Because it's hard to argue with yourself. When you make a commitment to yourself, you can't tell yourself no. It's your commitment. That's harder to fight than just defying the parent. So if they're in it and they know they have some ownership and they're invested into this enterprise, then they will honor, whatever the agreement is. And of course, you want to have a positive and a negative to whatever this, the rules are. If they do their homework without you having to ask them for a month, okay, we're going to go for pizza or something, find out their love language. You've already talked about the love language. Try to incorporate the love language aspect with the rewards, and also consider that on the punishment side as well. So all of this stuff, everything in the course, when we get to the end, you'll see it all kind of blend together, and it'll make a lot of sense to you. So that just gives you an incentive to study more, right?
Great, thank you.
So yeah, there's some other things we can talk about what we'll do in a discussion group. I'm putting together another course. It's probably 3 courses down the road, but there's a program called the Parenting Effectiveness Training Program, PET. Let me step away for a second. I'm going to go get the book. I'll show it to you. You can, if you want to order the book, you can get it. Just a second. Okay. So this, is it coming in reverse, or you guys see it?
That's good.
Okay. This is I'm gonna have a course that's gonna feature this particular method of parenting. There's some wonderful techniques in there when you're dealing with your children. The example that you used earlier with your son, you know, and you're getting kind of into this back and forth with him. There's a method in which you can navigate that conversation in such a way that you get the results that you're looking for, that he also feels like he's getting the results that he's looking for. They call it the win-win method. And generally, when we confront our kids, whether we know it or not, it's kind of a contest. And we want to win. The parents want to win. So we start telling them what to do, right? You're going to do this and you're going to do that. So because we're in control. Now, if you're a permissive parent, the roles kind of get flipped around, right? They are the winners. They're dictating to you, and now they feel empowered. And you don't want to, yes, yes, yes. I love my kids. I don't want anything. I don't want my children raised the way I was, where I couldn't do anything. I was told no, no, no. So I'm saying yes, yes, yes all the time. Well, we know that that's not going to be good in the long run for them, because they won't learn respect and they won't know boundaries or anything like that. But we need to keep this negotiation or this conversation in a place to where we're not in somebody wins and somebody loses, because that's not going to be good either way. If they win, you feel like a loser. If they lose, or if you win, they feel like a loser. We want to create conversations in which both of us can win. And that takes a little bit of wisdom, takes a little bit of adulthood guidance. And the way you basically do that is, number one, we're going to talk about their emotions first, because kids, and we all are, our first language is emotion. Okay, so we're going to talk to them on an emotional level, and then we're going to tag that emotion to a word. Okay, so if they're having an emotional crisis of some sort, we want to put a word to it, and we want to identify it, and then we're going to start sort of massaging it so it's not so, doesn't feel so bad anymore. That's kind of the flip side of labels. I know Kane is like a big, he's big against labels, but there's a good side to labels, and this is one of the good sides to labels. We label it, we identify it, and then we can massage it and make the pain go away, so to speak, right? So this is part of the process of when our children are conflicted and they're confronting us, that we want to talk to them at the emotional level, get it up to, on the left side of the brains, get it more logical oriented, have it balanced out, and then present a number of options for them so that they feel like they're contributing to the solution. Okay, as long as they're contributing to the solution, they feel a little empowered. And ultimately, that's what we want them to do, right? I remember, I think in the first class, we talked about the definition of parenting, or was that last week? I don't remember. And the goal of parenting is to take a helpless, completely dependent human being to a place to where they're completely independent and sustainable in that independence, and with the ability to thrive in life. And in that whole journey between is this gradual release of our control and giving control over to them. So when we're having these confrontations with our children, what we're trying to do is demonstrate that, yes, we're going to give you some power now. And this is how it's happening. I'm presenting you with the best options. you choose which path you want to take. They get to make the choice. They feel empowered. And you can even ask them for ideas. When they get a little older and they can start thinking of ideas, give me some ideas. Let's talk about these ideas. Share the ideas. Come up with a nice little compromise that will make everybody happy. And then the problems start to disappear. So, I mean, this would be more like in the advanced course. So you're just getting that for free here today. But that's really powerful. When the parents that I've taught this to, that they just come back to me and they can't. I love the smile on their face. They're not saying anything other than that. You're just in a good place. Like, that's all I need. Don't say anymore. I'm glad everything's going well. So anything else? Any other questions? How about you, Abdi?
No, so far I'm happy with everything, and I'm gonna keep showing up every week.
Okay, so next week, the next class, we're going to start getting into probably some familiar territory because it's going to talk about how the mind works. We're going to start talking about cognition, the ABCs, I guess, of NLP. I have my own acronym. It's IPOs, input, processes, and outputs. So that's what we're going to talk about. We need to understand how we think, and then the section after that is we're going to talk about how children think and how differently they think compared to us. And later we're going to introduce the cognition tower, which is basically this developmental process of how we think. So as adults, we all have our way of thinking, but before we got here, we went through a number of stages, and our children are going to go through stages, and we need to be able to understand what stage they're on so we can get on that level and connect with them and be able to have, a great connection with them and understand them. And when we get on their level, they know that they're being understood. And that's so important. One of the biggest problems with kids is that they don't feel like they're understood. They don't feel like their parents understand them. And if we can keep that from happening, you're going to have a great relationship with your child. So that's really what the goal here is understanding the mind, how it's developing, where your child's at, so that we can get on the same level with them and we can create these great connections with them. So that's what's coming up, and we're going to start by examining the entire cognition concept, inputs, processes, and outputs in the next section, and then we'll move into the child version of that in the following section. So that's what we got going next week. If you have any questions or whatever, please bring them to the meeting, and I'll do my best to answer. And of course, I'm going to put this up on the ecology video library. And for those that didn't make the meeting that wanted to see this, they asked me to record it. So it'll be available. If you guys want to watch it back, you can. If you want to make some comments below and share your, what this experience has been like, that'd be great, because I'd like to get more people, involved and really make this thing take off. So I appreciate your time, and I know it's getting kind of late here. And any closing thoughts from anybody? All right, just smiling faces. That's great. All right, guys. You guys have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you guys next Tuesday.
Thanks, Donnie. Thank you.
All right, take care.
Next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.